Senator from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm here for what I hope will be the last time to talk about a subject that I've come to the floor and discussed virtually every week we've been here since I went and visited a man who's been in a Turkish prison since October the 7th, 2016. His name is Andrew Brunson. He's a Presbyterian minister from North Carolina that in 2016, under the emergency orders in Turkey, President Erdogan ended up ordering the arrest of a number of people, many of whom I think were probably involved in the illegal coup attempt. And to the extent that the evidence demonstrates that they were, then they should be held accountable for their actions. But unfortunately, thousands of people, journalists, people of faith, a number of other people who are at the wrong place at the wrong time, like a NASA scientist who's already spent 2.5 years in prison, they were also arrested. They were also put in prison. And in the case of Pastor Brunson, he spent almost 17 months in a Turkish prison in a cell designed for 8 people that had 21 people in it. None of the other ones even English speaking. He then, about 17 months into it, had an indictment against him. It's about a 70-page document. It's a document that I've read. And quite honestly, I don't think a first-year law student or a magistrate anywhere would consider the allegations in this indictment as worthy of any prosecution, certainly not even enough to keep somebody in our U.S. judicial system, justice system, in prison overnight, let alone now 734 days. The 2-year anniversary was just on Sunday. And I called Pastor Brunson to speak with him Sunday morning to see how he's doing, see how his wife Noreen is doing. Noreen's been in the country the whole time because she's afraid if she leaves the country, they wouldn't let her come back. And after the last hearing, the Turkish officials did allow Pastor Brunson to be placed under house arrest. He can't leave his house. He has an electronic monitor. But the fact of the matter is he's still incarcerated. And he's still worried about the very real possibility that he could get convicted to 35 years in prison. Tomorrow, and the reason why I hope this is the last speech that I have to give, is tomorrow is what many of us believe may be the last time that he's in a courtroom. And I hope that President Erdogan and their justice system find justice for Pastor Brunson. And what that justice looks like to me, regardless of whatever conclusion the Turkish courts draw, innocence or guilt, that they simply complete the judicial process in Turkey and return Pastor Brunson and Noreen, his wife, back to the United States, most likely back to Western North Carolina. After I visited Pastor Brunson in a Turkish prison about 6 months ago, after I heard that he was concerned, once the indictment was issued against him, that the American people would read that indictment and just forget about him, it was important to me to go to Turkey, go to that Turkish prison just outside of Izmir, Turkey, one of the major cities in Turkey, to look him eye to eye and say, I will never forget you. Since that meeting, and after that meeting in prison, we had some 70 members of the U.S. Senate, both sides of the aisle, sign on to a letter to send the very clear message to Pastor Brunson, we're not going to forget him, but also the very clear message to Turkey, there will be a consequence if we have a miscarriage of justice in this case. I went back to a Turkish courtroom about almost 2 months after I met with him in prison, and I saw firsthand how the Turkish justice system works. It's not like ours, which is largely devoid of any political influence, or I view completely devoid of political influence. The president can't call a judge and tell him to put the thumb on the scale of justice here in the United States, but sometimes it looks that way in Turkey. So what I'm asking President Erdogan, the Turkish judiciary, the foreign ministers, the others that I've spoken with over the past several months, please, let's have justice for Pastor Brunson. Regardless of what the outcome is in the courts tomorrow, get him home. And I hope that that happens tomorrow or early next week. If, on the other hand, his hearing is continued again, or he's found guilty and is likely to be sentenced to 35 years, I'll have to take a different tack. It's a tack very similar to what we took, putting a provision in the National Defense Authorization, really questioning our long-term relationship with Turkey in terms of sharing technology with the Joint Strike Fighter. But when we went through that process, we had identified a number of other measures that I believe we could get strong support in the House and Senate that would take our relationship with Turkey in the wrong direction. I want Turkey to be a strong NATO ally. I want Turkey to be a strong trading partner. I want the Turkish people to have a vibrant economy. But at the end of the day, I will have to be motivated to convince the members of Congress and the President, who's been very helpful to this point, and Secretary of State Pompeo, that absent a just outcome for Pastor Brunson, we will have to take a look at how we can continue to fight for justice, and I sincerely hope that I never have to go down that path. So over the next 24 hours, Pastor Brunson is scheduled to be in a courtroom within about the next 16 hours. I hope the American people will keep him in their prayers. I hope the Turkish people will, and the Turkish leadership will do the right thing. And the right thing is having Pastor Brunson and Noreen come home. Thank you, Mr. President.